with a limited amount of time, if you remember, one of my big concerns and frustrations is with opiates, the detox from opiates is not as significant a medical condition as detox from alcohol.
Right.
You know,
I know that.
so I know, which is, and forgive me, I'll be saying some things I know you all know, but in putting it in context, that's the time crunch we're under. We have 24 hours basically to find a place.
Yeah, but provided he wanted to go or not.
Or not, and that comes into
Or
play
not.
too, yeah.
But it's helpful if, because I still call him a child, because he is
I
a
know.
child. He
I have a
has
27-year-old
stayed-
child, I know.
Well, he's 23, but really he's still stuck at 17 because that's when he started. And
Yep.
we all know that that's, and a lot of things I found out from my therapist who was helping us through this, who's an expert in that particular field
Yep.
and who was kind of guiding us, trying to get us to, do this and the other thing.
Mhm.
But it was very frustrating. I can't tell you the hours I spent on the phone with Blue Cross Blue Shield, trying to figure out in-network, out-of-network. The rehab was telling me, oh, no, if it's, well,
Yeah.
this is what you got. No, wait a minute. No,
It's a frustrating system,
No, that's-
hands down,
Frustrating.
hands down.
It's not set up to work efficiently, and I mean, these people spend hours dealing with that same thing.
Oh,
I mean, the issue is, do people wanna stop using? Okay, if people wanna stop using, they can stop using. But if people don't wanna stop, you end up banging your head against the wall, because
Yeah.
unless they decide that they wanna get clean and sober, okay? Unless they decide they wanna get clean and sober, you're turning your wheels in sand. It's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
When they wanna decide to get clean and sober, they can, and there's help around. I agree with it. The insurance thing is an absolute nightmare. It's
Oh,
an
it is.
absolute nightmare, because I see these people sitting around the goddamn emergency room or up on the floor, on the phone, hour after hour after hour, trying to find a place. And then whoever it is may say, shit, I don't want that, I wanna go home. And so they just go home. I
Yeah.
mean, it's frustrating, and we experience that all the time. I mean, there just isn't the availability of beds for this.
Yeah. No, I
And the insurance companies, I mean, they make it a game. So we play the game, we tell some white lies, and they tell some white lies. And, but hopefully, a kid wants to get clean and sober, and then he can get help. The hope's there. It isn't necessarily easy to achieve, though. I mean,
I've had people tell me when I get a place, which is the exception to the norm, not that place, no. And since it's not something we can section 12, with it considered a danger to themselves or others, then we could have the authority to send them anyway. But this, they have the right to make decisions. People have the right to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
But I also hear you saying how difficult it is to navigate the system, how hopeless and helpless it can feel of like, where do I go, who do I turn to, I can do.
Yeah.
And I think these are the kind of conversations we're trying to have, of how to really educate people on how to navigate the system, and who do you call and who can help with it, and what are some of the barriers that people can problem solve together, because I do think that that is one of the biggest frustrations families in particular feel.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
very frustrating. You don't know what's a good facility and what's a bad
Yep.
facility, or what's and speaking with my therapist, it was, where'd you send him to Plymouth? I said, that place is a dump, Bridgewater's a dump, drugs getting there, I'm like, oh my God.
I agree that none of these places are perfect. I'll agree with that. But if somebody wants to get clean and sober, the opportunities are there. There isn't a gilded place with music and lights and flowers
It's not
that
a
they
spa.
walk into and all of a sudden have that moment of clarity. There isn't. I don't care if it's as gritty as hell. The issue is, I want to get clean and sober. I can get clean and sober any place.
Amazingly enough, that facility in California was great. It's featured in Psychology Today and everything, and 54 days, groups, therapy, all of that. He comes back, occasional using, and I kind of figured it out. It took one experience for him. After that, in January, in February, I took him to a very small, teeny rehab facility down in Rhode Island for 28 days, and that did it. On top of what he had faced the previous 30 days he went there.
And I think sometimes, you know, when with studying addiction, we don't know which place or which time's going to be effective because it's based really on that person's ability to think clearly and the amount of space from using. That first time, as Lepre can say, if they really want it, if they have the supports and they continue to advocate in the hospital, I am not ready to go home. I need a step down. I need my supports with me and continue to say no, no, no. It can happen. But if families aren't supported and the hospital insurance drops and someone is just charged too soon, which happens more often than it doesn't, you're right, it can feel like that vicious cycle of continuously going around and around.
The addict themselves doesn't know that they need that support.
Yeah.
They go, they detox, they're somewhere for 30 days, they have all kinds of confidence. I can do this, I
Yeah.
can do this,
I can do this.
I've got it,
Yeah.
I've got it,
Yeah.
I've got all the tools I need.
They want to believe that.
And then they come home. And they don't wanna go to meetings and they don't think they need to talk to anybody professionally,
Yeah.
but they fail.
More
Sending them
often
back
than
home, they fail because they don't have the support that they need. I think they need long-term
Yeah.
care.
The whole system needs to change.
The whole system needs to change.
Yeah. The family needs to talk about it. The friends need to be supportive and provide sober places, and the treatment needs to be a part of it. Whether it's AA or outpatient treatment or faith has been a big support to many people. There's lots of different ways to do it, but people can't do it alone. We know that that doesn't work.
Now, how's the counseling service doing as far as therapists and,
Yep. It's a constant struggle for us. I'll be candid with Governor Baker's proposed budget cuts for losing crisis and the town cutting funding. We want to hire more clinicians. So we want to work on continuously trying to do it. And yes, we got the same amount of town funding we hope for this next year as we did this year, but we know that there's a lot of people that need more support. Our wait list was 42 last month. It's down to 25. We're trying to get people in as much as possible. We're trying to actively recruit, as we have for the last 7 months, to get clinicians to move to the island. They can't find housing. It's the biggest problem, is that we have lots of people that would be willing to but can't afford the housing. So we're trying to do it with a couple of different steps. Of a lot of community awareness, free services. We're going to be opening a free family resource center, really using our 12-step programs as supports for us.
we're gonna be opening, what is it?
We applied for a big grant with Family Continuity, which is going to be 40 hours a week of a free family resource center. One big component of it is navigating the system. How do you get beds? How do you apply for DMH applications? How do you get food stamps? How do you apply for a job? Literally hand over hand, almost case management. There's also 28 hours a week of a court and a school liaison, and this person specifically is going to catch youth at risk. So they are working in the public and the private schools for anybody who is dinging continuously on a challenging level with schools in the court system. And then 8 hours of free clinical service every week. So we're going to have free evidence-based parent support groups, some counseling groups, some peer support groups for social skills, as well as some sobriety. So the state walks through this Friday, and we should be open in the next 2 weeks. We'll have a soft opening and tell everybody about it. But we're working, saying if insurance is a barrier and we don't have enough clinicians, can we offer other free services? And the state heard us, and we were able to get a pretty large grant to support that. We also work really closely with the hospital and try to continue to catch as many people as we can and refer to private practitioners whenever they're available and can either take the person with the linguistic capability or insurance. We're working as well as we can together, and I think the best we have in a very long time. But there's room for improvement, absolutely.
There's not a lot of federal money or state money, for that matter, put into substance abuse treatment. It's just not. Much SAMHSA's out there, but it just doesn't do it. It's not recognized, and there's still people out there, even in the medical field, who won't accept calling it a disease. So in that capacity, when you have that kind of disconnect there, it makes it very difficult. Without the funding, without the programs, without the ability to put the time in there. I mean, Roberta, you're right. I mean, you didn't develop this problem overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight. It's going to take time, relearning it over and over again, burning your hand on the stove again, over and over again, until you've really behaviorally shaped the fact that, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. It doesn't happen overnight. That takes places, takes money. Insurance companies are finding every which way not to pay. So we're fighting the same battles, and you're absolutely right. If you have our sympathy, our time spent as well,
Yeah.
personally, professionally, to try and work through a system that is not designed really to work that effectively. Doesn't mean we can't do everything we can and have some success, and as Dr. Leffery says, there has to be a motivated person as well. I mean, I said the comment that I said
You know,
last
he
time.
was not motivated.
And yeah, if
No.
you're not motivated, I mean, I had the guy
He
tell me
was
last
too
time,
addicted.
I'm never gonna quit, the high's too good.
No,
It
but,
was
At least he was
in what
honest.
they call the vicious circle of addiction, the feel
Right.
guilty, the wanting to, having to use and then feel guilty about it, and in order to escape that guilt, he was using
Yeah.
more and more and more,
Hmm.
until it was like, you know, it was at the point where I noticed, I've never done drugs in my life, I don't even know what it looks like when somebody's under. But I knew there was something wrong with him. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You know, and he was trying to quit on his own. I'm like, you can't do this on your own, and I can't help you.
no, they have to recognize there's a problem.
Right.
Once they recognize there's a problem, then there are supports. I mean, I'll talk to the Suboxone program. I mean, the Suboxone program does a variety of things. I wish Aileen were here because she actually is the brains of the outfit. But, I mean, it provides a way, a safe opportunity to not use. What I tell people is you don't hang around with stupid people. You don't do stupid things. You don't go stupid places. Okay? If you're on Suboxone, hopefully, but I'm a realist, you're not pissing away a couple $100 a day for heroin. If you get people in the first year, you cut down the risks of Hep C, which then compounds the issue. And it gives you an opportunity to sit and think and reflect, get involved with the groups, get involved with getting clean and sober and staying clean and sober and thinking over why you used. That's the real role of Suboxone. Yes, we get people off Suboxone, but I think it's like a dry drunk. You know, you can get somebody not using, but they're always on the precipice of using. So you give them an opportunity to stop and think and reflect, get counseling, and understand it, and then we can get them off Suboxone. I mean, Suboxone to me, in the majority of cases, is something I would like to get people off of, but it has to be an opportunity to reflect on why you used and how to avoid using. I mean, I tell people, lose your cell phone, because you know why? Because you have people coming back clean, having gone through rehab and all of that, and the bastards would be waiting for you at the boat. They'd be waiting for you at the
Yeah.
boat. And I think Kevin can testify to that. I mean, the meatheads are sitting there waiting to get them using again.
I can testify to that.
Yeah, they're waiting there to get them to use again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a ton of temptations, there are a lot of things you can do, lose the phone, get on Suboxone, get counseling, understand why, then get off Suboxone. Because I don't want to see these kids on Suboxone in 5 years.
Well, isn't it kind of addictive too, because it has.
Suboxone is,
Yeah,
look,
it
Suboxone,
cuts the edge with
Suboxone is a drug. Suboxone, you go through, you can detox off Suboxone. But the issue is, it gives you an opportunity, as we cut down the dosage, to sit and think about why you get into trouble. Because the issue is, sure, I lock you in a room, I can detox the hell out of you. But if you don't understand it and you don't want to get clean, you're going to get dirty again. Suboxone gives you an opportunity to think through those things. You know, like in AA, the 12 steps. Do the steps, do the work. Understand it. And then you don't have to use.
That's what he's doing right now. He's very involved.
Yeah.
It gives you time to relearn your behaviors. If using is everything that becomes a lifestyle, you need the space to cut out the illicit behavior so you're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on the drug. You're not being worried about police exchange. You hopefully have insurance to cover the cost to stay med compliant so that you have the time to get the thinking clear to relearn what the priorities
And
are.
I understand that. I
Yeah.
mean, I watched The Hungry Heart.
Yeah.
First came to Nantucket in February of 14, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
It was something that, I would watch, and I was amazed at what, it really broke my heart, on top of, to see what other parents go through, the same as I did, and, our family did, cause it does break your family, it does, it affects
Mhm.
everybody.
It's a cannibal.
It is
It
in the
eats away
house.
at everybody.
Yeah, it does, and, he didn't understand it. They're so selfishly, so,
Taking care of
thinking-
themselves and their addiction.
Right,
Yeah, that's the number one
Yeah.
priority.
They're completely self-absorbed. Remember,
Yeah.
they're what is it, the neurotransmitters, the pleasure principle, that it's just so high with the opiate narcotics. It's like unbelievable. You don't want to not do that again. So you're so obsessed. You're not thinking clearly when you're high. You're feeling good, and you're obsessed with getting high again. How do I get my next hit? So your whole day is spent either being high or looking for ways to get high. You're not stepping out of the box and thinking, what the hell did I get myself into?
the thing is you see, as many times as he's talked to me and said, when I was on drugs, Mom, I felt great. You have no idea. I felt like I could do things I could
Invincible.
never do if it was
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. Why? Because high school, middle school picked that, or, he was a little bit more sensitive. He does have a disability, an auditory processing disorder. He was paired with somebody else who also had a disability, more severe, it was autistic, than his, and ended up having to defend him or protect him from other kids, and so he felt that the teachers had put him in charge of this kid, when really he wasn't. But, and this went on and on all throughout high school until he discovered somebody gave him a pill and says, hey, take this.
It'll make you feel better.
Wow. I feel good,
Kevin,
I'm angry.
I'd like to know what the police approach is to the, let's say, user as opposed to the person
The dealer.
distributing.
What's the new philosophy, can you explain that?
Well,
That's Sergeant Sanders.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know that we are now we're looking at the bigger picture, and I think that's happening all across the country, by the way. We are trying to understand what the person is going through, and then deal with that, and then deal with criminal charges if there are any later on. It's not easy. As Dr. Leftery said, if the person doesn't want help, then there's really not much we can do. I think that the panels that we serve on and the agencies, organizations that are in this community are communicating better than they ever have. They have a great relationship. So if I do see someone that I'm familiar with and I understand that he's going to need help, or we discover that he is using, I'll make a phone call. I don't have to worry about HIPAA or anything like that, but we do take the extra steps. I know that the detective division just recently promoted 2 more detectives, so now we're at full staff in the detective division. So they are working on criminal cases, which take time, but we do understand that it's a bigger picture than just throwing someone in jail, because as soon as he gets out, it's going to be right back there. So we're trying to collaborate with a multitude of different agencies, Family and Children's Services and the state, to try and take care of that problem, but it's not easy.
And I can attest, working with the police and the courts on a regular basis, that they don't want to put somebody in jail if they have an addiction. They'd much prefer, and there are many cases where they put the criminal process on hold and they have the individual go to a treatment facility. But that's what the issue is. Even
And
though
that
there's
really
legal
is-
issues, they'll have them go to a treatment facility, because that's gonna give the person a better chance. Not that
Right.
they're innocent from whatever they did, but they're working with us to be able to focus on what they need, not
And
just
we can use that as
warehousing.
leverage to make them make a good decision. Okay, yeah, maybe I do need treatment.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then
Right.
we're going to throw these charges at you. It's either or, which helps at times, but not all the time.
And with the agency, we end up being the state contractors for first and second offender alcohol offenses, the DAE and the SOA program. The court often backs us up. So if someone comes in with an alcohol charge first offense, we can recommend a higher level of care, and the court will actually often pay for it. So we say, I know this person came in with a DUI, but really after looking and sitting with them, there's a lot going on. There's some significant depression. There's some pretty strong opiate use. Yes, they're also drinking. They can't do this on their own here. They need a higher level of care. And not that that's a quick fix, but it might have the court follow through with some of that backup of getting people in treatment and helping pay for it. So I think the court and the legal system is trying to work to get more people care than just penalizing them.
How does the court pay for someone's treatment? How do you go about getting help?
So for example, if someone comes in as a first offender with a DUI, the state mandated treatment is 17 weeks of 2 hours a week of group education. If we say they, due to their addiction, are not able to do that, they can put into a 2 weeks residential program at Tewksbury, or we can recommend with the court that they need a higher level of care, but they financially can't pay for it, and the court often can pay for it. So probation is a big advocate for us. We have a new probation officer. It was Doug Mackey and Sean Schofield did a lot of work with us. But they are trying to work so that if there's a need and there's a clinical component to give people more services, the court will work with us. So it's a case-by-case basis, but there's a lot of room for some support with that.
That must be a grant though, because I can't imagine that's in their budget.
For first and second offenders, they are.
Is it?
Yeah.
How often do we have a juvenile probation person here on island? Because I know they're not.
You had just
Jen.
mentioned
Jen.
Sean Schofield, he's no longer there.
Yep.
But we have court once a month, which makes it
But we
difficult.
don't have a juvenile probation
Once a
person
week.
here.
He comes usually every Wednesday, I believe.
And I believe that Jen is now going to be taking over adult and children, and one of our positions through the Family Resource Center is going to have a court liaison. So we're going to have somebody present to do some court advocacy, like is mental health also a component here? Can we offer that as a support? But Sean was every other Wednesday, twice a month.
But she lives here.
And
So that's a big
Jen is a
change.
full-time probation that lives here, which will be great.
And she's an advocate.
Hmm.
She's
for
great.
sitting
She's
down.
good.
Do you remember her last name?
Except for the fact that when the court mandates random testing, the men cannot be tested by a woman.
Okay.
And they know when the gentlemen are coming.
Well, all you
So
gotta
it's
do
not
is
really random.
Yeah.
ask Aileen to come down, because Aileen has no compunction about observed urines.
I think Jen living here full-time, as previously Doug and Sean both commuted to the island, her being a Nantucket resident, she will be able to do random. As before, that was a hole in the system.
But isn't the problem that they have to go in there? And I think it's against the.
It's observed urines. You have to do observed urines if you're gonna
Yeah.
believe it. Or what we've done now
Oh, it's Jen.
is to do mouth swabs. And so you can watch the mouth swab turn blue, as opposed to watching them pee.
Really? Is that what they're doing now in the court?
That's
Because
what
I
I'm
know when
doing.
They have the random
No,
test.
that's
It's not
what I'm
random.
doing.
Yeah.
If it was a random test on the 21st of,
Yeah.
whatever, like, oh, you know how much time you have.
Yeah.
You're-
Yeah, well, except
and
one
you know
pro-
he's not gonna be back.
Yeah.
One problem is
Yeah.
that the mouth swab is 10 times more sensitive than the urine, which a number of my clients have found somewhat disconcerting. I have to inform them that perhaps the cocaine fairy came in because they deny having used. So, I mean, I think you have to do observed urines if you're gonna do urines. And I think you have to do it random. And I think the other thing is the mouth swabs. The mouth swabs are just so much more sensitive, and you don't have to do anything.
And that's
But the
what you
problem
and
is that
Alene are
They
doing.
don't have the ability to do it here. In the court
The
system.
issue
In the
is,
court system,
Maybe
they do
not the
have
court.
ability to do it.
well, you have to figure out a way to make it work, okay? Because
It's costly.
addicts are addicts because they will push the system, and you have to figure out a way to just reinforce it, because I go in and I say, did you use this week? And they say no. I said, well, that's bullshit, okay? The test shows you've been using. So why don't we sit down and have a talk about why you used, and two, why you lied to me? Because if you come out and you tell me, and you come in and you say, Tim, I'm dirty, okay. People are human, people screw up. I say, okay, let's figure that out. Now, if you come in and you lie to me, or we have to deal with the cocaine fairy, it's, you know.
If you're a doctor, somebody can't go to the courthouse and fail a test and have the probation officer sit down and say to them,
Well,
talk to me. The probation officer has to file that they've
I know, but
Yeah.
that's,
violated.
in my Suboxone program, I try and deal with those issues. I mean, if somebody does it repeatedly, then they get cast out into the darkness, and then they have to go through NBHS to get back into the program, because then they're not serious about it. They're not ready.
I think Jen up there would be open to the discussion if there are holes in the system. She is extremely collaborative.
Hmm.
I think if there are issues, she would be open to hearing from family. She would be open to hearing, to figure out a solution to that problem.
What is her last name?
Tiger?
Yeah, we've heard good things about it.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
nobody's
she's great.
questioning her, we're questioning the system as to how does the system do random testing when
Yep.
it cannot allow a woman to go in with a man.
Right, but if
You
there
know,
is a
so we
problem,
have,
I think
and
she
there
should
isn't
be
random.
working
When you know when your testing
No,
is,
no.
it's not random
Yeah,
testing.
yeah.
No, and the kids know too, because again, they come on the same day every other week, so.
And then,
Well, and right now, there's a male still coming.
Yeah.
but isn't the
Yeah,
probation officer at the high school, I believe it's a female?
It's no longer Sean Schofield, I'm not sure who
Julie,
replaced her.
I don't recall her last name. But it's, so,
What I do know is that Doug Mackey comes once a month to do mails. Because my son
So there's a
has
bit of
mail.
an overlap between Doug and
Well,
Jen.
Well, no, because Jen also wants them to check in with her.
Good.
William gets regular things, says, hey, come in and check in with me, bring me proof of employment, bring me
Yeah.
whatever you're doing,
Good.
I wanna know what you, so he'll go down and talk to her and say, yeah, I'm working at this place, and,
Yep. Yeah.
I'm doing this, I'm doing that, this is what I'm doing, keep myself busy, and, I'm chairing one meeting on Thursday nights, and, it's a good
Yeah.
thing,
That's
but
good.
Doug is the one that comes down to test them.
I think that's all good feedback though.
It sounds like you've got the communication here, if you put the puzzle pieces together. I was unfamiliar with the swabs myself, to be honest with you, but that's certainly from the perspective of observed.
Yeah.
If Jen is willing to hear anything, and hear about holes in the
Oh, she's
process.
willing to do the swab, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, so I mean, it sounds like communication to her about that, just connect the pieces here, that removes that hole altogether, right?
Yeah.
See, and the insurance pays for the swabs, because the urine tests were costing me $30 a test.
Even better.
But insurance has been covering the swabs.
well, and wouldn't that make sense to do the swabs at the high school
I mean,
as well?
Just do the swabs, but any place, because you take away the whole aspect of, being able to be creative with unobserved urines or
Yeah.
hidden observed urines, things like that. Takes that away altogether.
Okay, I have a few questions, I gotta ask them.
Sure, jump in.
Okay, first of all, I have a statement to make, first of all. Wearing my hat as a CRC,
Okay.
funding has not changed in town of Nantucket. It's been level funded for quite a few years, okay?
Okay.
So just clarify that to everybody in the room, okay? The town has not cut funding,
It was
Okay.
110 down to 100. It was
but it's been level funded for a few years.
I mean,
It
how
was
much money went
150
to,
it
how much
was-
did money did CRC have to work with, you mean?
No, the amount of money that we're giving to behavioral health.
But
But anyway, and for the
the
issues
total
related
amount.
to,
okay.
yeah, drug use on the island. Okay, couple questions. What is the police department doing about our dealers? The people that are destroying our children? What are they actually doing? Instead of our children paying the consequences of being addicts, which is a disease, what about the people that are making a fortune in destroying the youth of this island?
I can tell you, Sergeant Tom Klinger is in charge of the detectives, and he just promoted 2 more detectives, so he has full staff. It's just not an easy task. We know who they are, to build a case, to get the evidence we need, to make sure that when we do it right the first time, and so we are able to put them away. A lot of them are traveling back and forth. We just had a canine drug dog come over, because ours is currently being educated. We just had a drug dog come over and utilized him for the post office, for FedEx, so we are working, but it can take years.
Do you know what it's like to bring my 14-year-old son, have him sit in the parking lot and me turn to him and say, no, watch, I'm gonna show you a drug deal right now.
Sure,
Do you see this? In the Pacific National Bank parking lot,
sure.
during the middle of the day. As I'm at an ATM, I'm like, watch, this is a drug deal going on.
Yeah.
And we watch the whole thing transpire. And
And we
people
get-
know that it happens in that parking lot.
And we get called and we respond and we do what we can at that particular moment. But there are only so many things that we can do as we approach someone, or to frisk someone, or to stop. We know who they are, and if we don't, we will know now that we're fully staffed. But we are working to build cases to stop that.
I mean, the issue is probable cause. I mean,
We all know that,
we
but-
all would like the vigilante aspect of it. But unfortunately, the cops have to do, there are certain things that they have to do. And I personally agree with you. I see these things going on, and I would like to see the police come down, but you know what? If they go down, they rouse somebody, and it gets thrown out in court, then we haven't gone anywhere.
But how about the houses that we know that they live in? How about the places that we know that
And you
they're
have to
going,
keep
and the
in
people that
mind-
we know that are dealing,
Yeah.
to, you know, it's, they're going on, they've been doing this for 10 years.
Sure, but you also have to keep in mind too, just to go back a little bit, is when they're traveling, it becomes a multi-jurisdiction. So now you're dealing with multiple agencies. If you're dealing with the post office, it's the federal, so you have to follow federal guidelines. So it's not as easy as it appears going up to someone saying, hey, I know you're a drug dealer. And they move around. It used to be that they sold out of houses and they went to their cars. Now they know that it's easier for them just to do a quick drive-by or whatever their process is. But as soon as we catch on to what they're doing, they just change it again. They adapt. So, you know, there's no easy answer. There's no easy answer. When we have a case and it's a solid case, absolutely we're going to do what we need to do and lock them up and prosecute them. But if we're not going to be able to do that legally, and yes, we'll get the drugs off of his person, but that's not anything near what's could be in his house or could be in the car or wherever, and that's really where we want.
So, let me ask you about dogs, drug dogs,
Yep.
you mentioned. Everybody keeps saying it's an island. I mean, we should have a way to stop this stuff from getting here because we're 30 miles out. So I'm just asking the question.
Sure.
Is it possible, if we had all the resources in the world, and we had 10 drug dogs on staff, to have a dog meet every plane, every boat, FedEx, post office? Is that a scenario that would lead to arrest? Is there probable cause if a package comes addressed to me and the dog sniffs it out, can you then come to me and say you're under arrest because this came to you?
Well,
I'm asking the question.
So
I have no idea.
here's an example. So if we have a drug dog come into the United States Post Office and he hits on a package,
Yep.
we can't technically open that package.
Okay.
If it's a UPS package, it's a private company. Well, now UPS is the private company. You're able to open that package because they have certain guidelines and it's a
Right.
private company. They can make up their own rules.
Right.
So yeah, we could, but if there's nobody there to claim the package, then we're still out. Yeah, we have the drugs, but don't you really want to get that person? So
So you can't come to me, it's addressed to me. You can't come find me where I live
and do what?
and say there was a package that had heroin in it, it was addressed to you.
I could write a package right now and say it belongs to John Doe, but it really
So
doesn't.
there's no chain of custody, there's no proof that that actually was mine or that it was intended for me, so
No,
therefore
and that's
it's
why
you.
it takes so long to build cases, because,
Right.
okay, well, where did that package originate from? Florida? Now we have to contact the Florida authorities, begin to build a case there. Well, what is he doing there? Is he a drug dealer there? Where, does it actually originate
So
from
put the
Florida?
legal part, just say, here, grab it
Yeah.
and get rid of it.
But wouldn't you just
It
wait
doesn't
till
get
that,
in.
wouldn't you just wait till that person came to receive the package, then when they have received it and it's in their possession, then couldn't you arrest them for possession at
Then
some
we could,
point?
yes.
Right.
Yeah, so you would just wait it out.
If it's in their possession? In a
It
UPS?
happened at my house.
What's that?
It happened at my house.
What's that?
A
Yeah.
package, 500 oxys.
No, I'm saying at the actual company. At the UPS store company,
No, it came to the post office, that package.
right.
But that came to your house.
Yeah.
Right,
And
that's
somebody
different.
tracked that.
Yeah, FBI,
Okay.
threw it in the door.
Right.
The
But
FBI threw it in the door?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm talking
And it
about
was
the
addressed
companies
to
though
my dead
itself.
husband. So my new husband kept giving it back to the guy. So he just threw it in and he said, my husband said, no, he's dead. This isn't for us.
And that's the other thing too, is you can track packages, so we can see IP addresses of who's actually checking,
Right.
but now that requires search warrants and all these
Right,
other
right,
things,
right.
so it's just not as easy as
That
one
sounds
would
But
fun.
think.
I'm asking because that's what I hear from
Yeah.
the community. We are an island, how is this crap getting in? That's the.
There's 6
Boats,
boats a
planes.
day,
Right,
and there's,
I know.
don't know.
But I'm saying, you know, with enough resources, could we build the wall? Could we have some way of literally, not even arresting people, just stopping it?
Or just letting them
But you
build
got
the
1,500 people on the boat.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've had
They
guys,
have to come a single line to get off, and have a single line of cars to go out. I'm just saying.
but then you're getting into a totally unworkable system. I mean, the police, I know, have been down there waiting for somebody, and he jumped in the water. Of course, all the packets of heroin started floating up, so it wasn't a hard case. But, I mean, these guys have, the trouble is, we would all like to Rambo it, but you can't, because these bastards have constitutional protections. And the cops have to behave
Yeah.
above board, and I think it's very, very difficult. all of us have probably seen a drug deal go down. Wonderful. And, hey, come on over here, Kevin, arrest this guy. Well, you know, if Kevin didn't see it and the guy denies it, he's constrained.
I can't just search him.
He's constrained to what he can do.
The bastards can come back to the island, but our children cannot. Our
Right.
children cannot survive here and come back,
Right.
a majority of them. Yet those guys can keep coming on the boat, and those drugs can keep coming on the boat, and it's not fair to all of us, to the kids, to the families, that we're losing our kids, and they can't come back. I mean, for them to come back, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it takes years for them to actually have all the tools they need to survive back in this community. And
But-
that's not fair. It's not fair that they're coming over on the boat, and our kids can't.
But as you cut down demand, and it's a supply and demand issue.
But if it keeps coming,
If you
it's not
cut
gonna
down-
stop
It's
now.
going to
If you
keep
cut
coming.
down the
It's
demand,
It's been
that-
going on forever. It's going to keep coming. You can have private vessels, you can have private planes, you can get it here, you can have dogs all over the place. It's gonna get here. It's been going on for so long. Nantucket's not gonna be unique in that capacity to be able to do that. It's gonna be out there. The real issue is being able to deal with the kids and cut down the demand. Because that you have a better chance of controlling. Not controlling, better chance of doing something with. If you're gonna focus on being able to prevent it from coming here, they'll find another way to get it. They'll create something else synthetically. They'll do something else. If the person wants it, he will get it. In relation to facilities, yes, there are drugs in just about every facility you go to. I've had countless conversations. Focus on the professional, on the doctor, on the social worker. Don't look this way, because you're gonna see some a-hole over there using, or this way, it's gonna be, they're there. The money's underfunded, so the facilities are not that great. Focus here. If the person wants it, like Tim said, they can do it. What we can do as parents is do the best we can with frustrations and failures with our own kids and
Let me
friends.
tell you one thing, that, you know, if you see somebody using, that's a trigger.
Absolutely.
We gotta
Absolutely.
consider the triggering, cause the survival, the brain goes into survival mode. Where does addiction live? That's something I learned at Gosman. It was one of the best lectures I've ever gone to. They do family things on Saturday. I went to one of their things when I went to see my son. And I had no idea, but that therapist was incredibly good. She went through the whole cycle, and there was a room full of parents. That's when I really felt I'm not alone. Wow.
Too many people
But-
don't know the real aspects. They feel a high, and most are uneducated in terms of that, myself included. I couldn't tell you all the specifics,
Right.
but you get the right person to explain. And if you have a reasonably educated person listening, who the user, you can understand, it really does that, and it affects them. May not change things right away, but you planted a seed to think about it a little bit more. And then you nurture that seed a little bit more, continue to re-educate, as far as that's concerned.
Okay, I have another question. And Tim, this is like basically, I think you're the only one that could probably answer this. How do you track when a doctor prescribes a drug to a patient? How can they track that drug or the background of the individual that's taking a drug? Let's say, my son came from third generation prescription drug addicts. I adopted him, fourth generation. He's prescribed drugs that actually he becomes addicted to because, first of all, it's in his DNA. Second of all, some of them he didn't need, but he then gets addicted to these drugs. How is there a check and balance system to watch when we're prescribing drugs to individuals that have this, that are either predisposed to this, genetically predisposed, or that can be better monitored so that it doesn't become a problem for them in the future?
The easiest way to monitor it right now is the state system, because when we, out of the office, when we prescribe an opiate, I have a nurse that looks up on the state register, and she can see this guy's been going to 5 different physicians, or this one got this much 3 days ago. We can check that. We check that routinely.
Yeah, but
And-
how about the rest of it? I mean, like, for my son, being prescribed some drugs, actually, I mean, his grandmother died of it, his great-grandmother died of it, and his mom is a prescription drug addict. I mean, and she's,
I mean-
besides that, so here he's set up for failure,
If-
and he gets addicted. Is there a system in place to check that, to know that we have these issues? in
If
the
you
family?
have a family history, then you look at it. If you look at prescriptions they're getting, you can look at it. But there isn't a hard and fast way, you know, if you don't have a significant family history like that, of picking that up. And I don't know that the majority of patients that I see come in with this extensive family history.
Well, couldn't you, like a person, you know, like, if you wanted to put that in your medical records, if that was part of your medical record
Yeah.
history, then that information is available to doctors to review, you know.
No.
So for example, if you were someone's, you know, personal physician here in Nantucket and their records were transferred to Oklahoma, for instance, that would be part of their medical record, and it
Yeah.
would be up to the patient themselves to unveil that information.
No,
That's
that's,
one way to make sure that that's in your medical records.
no, that's in there, but you, somebody has to look at it.
Is it a state registry or
Oh, no, it's a state registry.
national?
No, it's just state.
Just state only.
In the
for
state of
opioids.
Massachusetts, I can look
Back for
up
Connecticut.
and see whether Bob Jones, his last 5 prescriptions for opiates, let's say.
Mhm.
And I can see who prescribed him, and I can see where the prescription was filled.
Yeah, isn't there like a 2.5 week lapse on that right
There
now?
may be, but you know what? It isn't a perfect system,
It's better
but
than nothing.
Yeah.
we had somebody today we looked at, and it was obvious that they were shopping around and they had gotten prescriptions from 5 different people.
We get flags all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
On our patients, like if we have somebody going to Dan's pharmacy and then they go to Island Pharmacy trying to get
Yep.
stuff, they flag it to our,
Yeah.
prescribing doctor straight away.
No,
No,
the
it's like-
pharmacies do that, but I mean, if they go off island, I mean,
Right.
this isn't a perfect system. It isn't minute by minute, but the pattern is usually pretty obvious.
And psychiatrists in general by practice should be doing a thorough assessment of all of the genetic and modeled behavior that could lead to addiction, so they're not prescribing benzos to someone who had previous addiction, for example. So, as Leprey says, if there's time and some structure in place, it's not perfect, but it does have some catches to at least check on things.
And
My
there
son's gonna
isn't,
be clean a year tomorrow.
yeah, there isn't an addiction gene that we can identify. You know, somebody was talking to me about this today.
That's very good.
There isn't a way to highlight the people that are most apt to get into trouble. The majority of people don't. The majority of people do not. But some people are predisposed, and some people do get into trouble with it. I mean, it isn't like, okay, out of the, let's say, depending on whether Aileen has gone through the list or not, 45 to 60 people we see in a Suboxone program, it isn't the majority of those that have an extensive family drug history. Aileen sits down with them and goes over all of this and goes over the stressors and everything else in their life. But they have been addicted. They are on Suboxone, hopefully. They may or may not be cheating, but that's what I find useful, keeps them from getting into trouble.
It's the first step of many more steps, but
Yeah.
at least it's the first step.
But the counseling, to me, the Suboxone part of it is relatively minimal. I mean, the issue to me is get somebody on Suboxone so that they don't have to be thinking about drugs 24 hours a day, and get them into counseling. And I think we need to have more counseling available.
Break
Do
the
you
cycle, step
recommend
out of the
that, though,
box.
for like children? Is that what you recommend for children? You don't recommend that for kids, do you?
Well, I mean,
Suboxone?
if a
I'm just
kid's,
asking.
if a kid's using opiates,
You don't recommend going a younger child?
well, I mean, if
to
a
a kinder
kid's,
program
okay,
with
if a
nothing?
kid's been on Percocets for 3
He's already
weeks,
damaging himself.
then I don't particularly think that's useful. I think counseling is the way to go. But if somebody's been using opiates for prolonged periods of time, then I think to me, you got methadone and you got Suboxone. Methadone is not available on an island, and Cheryl Bartlett and I got interested in this a number of years ago. We tried to get something going with methadone here. But now, if somebody wants to be on methadone for opiate addiction, they have to go to the Cape. And they have to
If you
go.
have young children, do you recommend, I mean, I guess the question is, if young kids, is that what you recommend?
Well, I
Do you
don't, I
recommend them to
mean,
go-
I can't say, the youngest people I'm seeing are 19.
I think most treatment protocols look at the intensity, frequency, and duration of what they're using at what milligram level. They also look at the extent of the use. Are they eating pills? Are they snorting pills? Have they switched to an IV use? So it's a scaled system depending on all of that. But I have seen different treatment programs that have started with medication-assisted recovery as a component to create some sobriety instead of them going cold turkey and detoxing and trying to do treatment. So it's
Young, even in the younger ages?
yeah. Ray
What-
Tomasi at Gosnold is a colleague, and we end up talking shop a lot about this, and it's a person-by-person basis. I don't think any treatment in addiction fits one person one way. It's done in different ways, but they
But
are seeing.
But I guess, so many times I hear a lot of our kids, Gosnell is the first place everybody goes to. But it's not necessarily the perfect fit, number one, for young kids, that are
Yeah.
going through or struggling.
But
Yeah.
what are you talking about young
Yeah.
kids? I mean, you're talking 13, are you talking 19?
You're talking, anybody 18 to 24 is still young.
Well,
Young kid.
I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
doing nothing,
There's
right?
a lot of teenagers
Yeah.
too, I mean, younger than that, they're dealing with it.
I know they're younger, but they are younger, but the question is in places I've met kids.
When we're
that
dealing
are
with younger
through the
kids, we'll
program.
find individual places for adolescents as
Yep.
far as that's concerned. We will rarely, if ever, put an adolescent in an adult unit.
Yeah, there's age constrictions.
there is.
at
I can say those. No, I just wanna make sure that we're talking about other programs that are around, because I think because Gosnell is so close, as Dorothy's saying, it can be one that people go to very frequently. But there's Castle that is really good for youth
Awesome for
to
you.
be going to, rather than, and it's really a youth-driven, substance abuse program. There's High Point, which is not a Gosnell affiliate. Now in Quincy, there is, Phoenix House has opened a new,
Yeah, that's
detox residential. They do amazing things. You should just look them up on, the web. They've got a fabulous website that really walks through all the stuff they're doing. They're doing mindfulness and yoga, and it's not just sort of going to detox and coming out. They have other programs, so we have some other options of places we look at. We have a pretty extensive list of places in Massachusetts that if anybody wants to come by, we'll hand you the whole list. It's a nice big packet that
52
gives you
pages.
all the options for treatment in the state, which I'm more than willing to share.
Yeah.
So, there are other places than, and Gosnell may be a good fit for somebody and it may not be.
Yep.
I mean,
But-
that happens.
Yeah, but the other issue in this, Athlon, is I focus on opiates because I'm seeing primarily heroin addicts. The other issue that's coming up is kids smoking dope, okay? And that smoking dope is, they're talking about legalizing marijuana, not just medical marijuana. And the kids have easier access to dope than they do to alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay? And that, to me, is where a lot of these other programs and these adolescent programs come in. I mean, most of my patients have come in and they're smoking dope and shooting up. But I think if we can get the kids at the stage in middle school and in high school where they're all smoking dope, then we can start having some inroads. And that is a different type
But
of
they're doing
protocol.
opiates in high school.
And they are, but it's
They
a
are.
minority. Everybody's smoking dope.
It's not as much a minority as you think it is.
No.
I think that's the sad
No,
part.
the ones I see, but I'm saying that everybody in this high school is exposed to or has been, will be smoking dope. And it's getting stronger and it's very different. I mean, Dr. Hartman probably remembers the dark old days when it was grown up on the, by the, what the hell river is it?
They're growing it everywhere.
Up outside of, outside of Lawrence and, the Merrimack River. In the Merrimack River, there used to be fields of hemp that were grown to make rope. And that's the big deal. I'm old enough to remember when the kids were smoking that, and that's,
were
that
growing
was
it
real
outside my
weed.
college. They
Now,
really do.
now it is very,
It's chemically altered.
well, it's not chemically altered, it's genetically altered, and it's a very different strength and a very different, I think it poses a tremendous danger to our kids.
Right.
And
it's been altered a lot from the pure
Yeah.
pot from the sixties and seventies. It was altered,
Yeah.
synthetically altered, chemically altered. It's much more dangerous. They're throwing all sorts of stuff in it now. Heather, you had a question?
I just wanna offer some, like, hope maybe to the parents, and, I can say now, fortunately, I've had to deal with everybody up there with my addiction. The hospital was awesome to me, Peter made phone calls right to the director of Gosnell, I got a bed right away. Dr. Leopard was there, I had multiple issues with the police, when I came back, I was lined up with family services, and I just celebrated 5 years sobriety, so.
Congratulations.
I just wanna support what Dr. Leopard said, like, the person really has to want it, like, I had many run-ins with the police, and finally I was like, I can't live like this anymore, so I really had to want it. And the statement about, like, the best facilities, I went to Gosnell, I spent 5 days at Detox, and then I went to their 28-day program, and I can't say enough about it. Maybe it wasn't Hazelton or this West Palm Beach in Florida, but, my insurance paid for it, and it was my first time ever in rehab. I have 2 young children, and I've never once felt like I wanna go back to that lifestyle. So, I don't think you're ever gonna get rid of heroin anywhere. I don't think that we can put up a wall and protect Nantucket. You, as an individual, have to want it. And someone said it breaks families, and I felt like really choked up because I watched my family and my kids, you know, I feel your pain in that as a parent.
It broke my family.
Yeah. But just understand from the addict's point of view, the addict really has to want it. And I work with a lot of addicts now. Like, addiction is really my passion. I try to say to people, you can do it. Like, I'm telling you, you can do it. So I know, I'm sure it's hard, it's gotta be hard for you to watch your family go through that, but you can want it for them desperately, but unless they want it, it's not gonna change.
And that's
Do
the
you
point
think
I
it
got to until he got arrested.
And, yeah,
He
that,
finally got arrested. And you
But
know
what
what? When somebody sent me a message and said, I feel bad, I was there. I said, why? He could have killed somebody.
yeah.
Let him take his medicine. He thinks he can fool the system, this will be good. It broke my heart.
And you
It
do, someone
really
said something
broke my
about, you know,
heart.
like, people waiting for you at the boat and changing your cell phone. You have to change. Again, for me, I drank in my house, in my room, I was very depressed. I didn't have that, you know, go to the chicken box every Wednesday night, or, you know, I didn't have friends that drank or did drugs with me, so I think that, you know, you do have to want to change all of that. You can come back there, you know, I hear a lot that there's not the services on Nantucket. There are, and I know plenty of people with 30+ years of recovery here. You have to want it, you have to put in the work, and it is hard. You have to go to the counseling, you have to face what you're trying to stop. I just wanted to shut my life off. I just wanted to not feel my life anymore. My life was not in a good place, and I didn't wanna feel it. And you do have to address those things, and you do have to maybe change your cell phone number and change your circle of friends, but if you really wanna be clean and enjoy your life, those are the things you have to do.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah,
Don't you think that they're young?
Congratulations.
Heather, are you a sponsor at all?
I am.
When
And
you're-
if anybody knows me then and knows me now, my life is so awesome. Dr. Hartman, my life is awesome. No, seriously, Dr. Hartman, anybody up there I think could say, Kevin could probably say it best. Like, many times the police were at my house, and, you know, they were talking about putting cases on hold. My last case was put on hold. I sat there in the hallway by myself, and they were like, are you here for court today? I'm like, yep. And in my mind, I was like, you're either gonna go to jail today, or you're gonna go to Gosnell today. What are you gonna do, Heather? And then I saw my dad come down the hallway, and I was like, all right, let's go to the hospital. And from that day on, I never looked back. I was like, what's wrong with you? You're a professional, you're a mom, like, and I come from a family of addiction. I have, my aunt's dead from a drug overdose, my grandfather's dead from alcoholism. You can turn it around, but you have to get up and you have to want it. More than anything. And life is so good on the other side, but like when I look back now, like, what was I thinking? Like, I went through divorce, I lost my job, all through sobriety. Like, I didn't pick up again. I was like, yeah, you just lost your job, and now you're getting divorced, and now you're in an awful custody battle, but you know what? You don't have to chase that demon anymore. You're not hiding from it anymore.
We need more people like you to speak up about.
You know, my life is good, my life is so
I'm
good.
sorry, but there is such a stigma.
Yes.
Because when my son was arrested, the article in the paper was nothing but a plastered, it was about this big, this wide. It was right after the big storms, so everybody knew. I work in this building.
Yeah.
I had to make a decision on whether or not I wanted to cover my face walking into this building or not. And you know what? I said, you know what? pardon
No,
my
you-
French,
yeah.
screw it.
Yeah, you have to.
If they're gonna be looking down on me, I will be looking down on them.
Relax.
I'm a professional and I felt the same way, like I was like, people are not gonna come to my
And I
place of
put my
employment and
chin
leave
up.
their children in my care. You know, I had to face it to him, something about meetings, yes, it's very small, but for me personally, I'd rather someone go, there's Heather walking into AA or NA than being like, there's Heather walking into Hatches again, or there's Heather in the court report again, like, you, and I'm a little older,
can't-
you get over that, I don't really care what people say about me anymore.
You can't hide yourself anymore, and I wish,
No.
you know, a lot, but there should have been a lot more people here tonight, a lot more, and at the symposium that you guys had with the town, because Board of Health wasn't aware.
Yeah.
This town is doing nothing but people just saying, oh, we don't have a drug problem.
No, but half the island goes to AA, half
They
the
don't.
other half should go.
Well,
And I mean, there isn't any mystery. I mean, everybody thinks it's a big mystery, who's drinking, who's drugging. It's not a big mystery. I mean, it's, whether you manage to make the court report or not, it isn't a mystery.
The big step that my son has taken was on, I think it was a couple of weeks ago on a Friday morning, he was asked, because he's a younger kid, he graduated from here, him and somebody else who's also just as young, to speak to the freshman class.
Hmm.
And he said, sure, I'll do it. I went in for 5-10 minutes to just listen. I was like, it takes a lot of guts
It does.
to
It
sit
does.
down
Mhm.
and face questions that come from freshmen, cause, you know, they're at this stage. Now, like, you had a lot of
Oh.
courage.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question in regards to what she said? I think with adults, they do have to take it on their own. But I think at a point when we have kids and we know it's happening, it is our job to show them, and it does work. Actually, I had somebody that didn't wanna do it, but when the whole family sat down and told him
Absolutely.
what was gonna happen if he chose not to take it and how his life was gonna change from that day on with all of us in it, he chose to take the gift of going.
But it's hard, it's,
That still does, that was an intervention though. Ultimately, you convinced him, by virtue of your passion and energy and everything, you convinced him to make that choice. Ultimately, it still was his choice. You went through it a
But
certain way to,
You can't do it with children.
you can, there are successes, there are no guarantees. It
Right.
does have to be the
There's no
individual's
guarantees
choice.
in any of it.
In your case, you found a very successful way to do it, and it worked. That may work with that one, may not work with somebody
It
else.
didn't work
You
with the
still,
second one, don't worry.
there you go.
but I mean,
50%
I
still better
think
than most of the national
everybody
ratio.
here that's had a kid
50%
with an
better than
addiction
national ratio.
issue can speak to the fact that until and unless they got slapped over the head or had the moment of clarity, they didn't catch the drift. Every parent here that's had a kid with an addiction has had that kid in rehab, detox, rehab, detox, rehab, detox. It wasn't until something happened that the kid had a moment of clarity that they understood it and they stopped using. Now, whether it was an interaction with the police, maybe it was a,
Good enough, jail.
yeah, Narcan that saved their life or something like that, then they catch on. I mean, you can't,
But I don't believe that's true in every case. I don't think we have to go through all that.
They don't have to hit rock bottom. They don't have to have a critical incident.
You can make the choice
Yeah.
before you hit rock
That's an
bottom.
important thing to understand, that you can, as a parent, intervene and make a difference. And they might not like you for it, Tim, and you might say that they don't want it, but the truth is, if you go to good rehabs for young kids, they will tell you, you know
It
what?
depends what you mean
Don't
by
wait
a
for the
young
to
kid,
tell you
Dorothy.
they want it. You bring the kid in and get them in there.
if you tell me a 13 or 14-year-old, I'll agree with you. If you tell me an 18 or 19-year-old, until and unless, I actually believe after the age of 8, it's very difficult to make anybody do anything. If they understand it and they recognize it, yes, I think you can be successful. But this isn't something I didn't make somebody drink. I didn't make somebody drug. And I can't make them start, I can't make them stop. The only way they stop is from in here.
It's
And-
trying to like make a baby go to sleep. I mean, you can't, I mean, there's only so many ways, and
But
But
I also
believe-
hear,
I've seen
Yeah.
it work, and not only in my son's case, but in the cases of kids that went to the same facility, and talking with parents, and the history behind it is, it can work. And they do tell you when you're working with young children, that you can implement yourself,
Absolutely.
you can as a parent or as a family, put a child into a system, into a program, and it can make a huge difference in their lives.
It can,
Absolutely.
but it also can, as you know, it can
It can
turn
backfire.
that, backfire, and that kid just leaves Dodge and leaves you altogether because he was told what to do and he disagrees, he could run away. It can. You have to individualize it in every situation, figure what's the best way to convince this person, child or adult, to come to a better understanding of things.
And
But,
all of your children had you.
What's that?
They all had, I mean, all of your children, when we're talking about people in this room, or other people who cared about her, I mean, all of the kids that we're discussing in here, they've got people who will show up tonight. That makes a huge difference in their lives,
Mhm.
rather than some of the kids that
Don't have
I've
it.
seen over my lifetime of working, they don't have, they can barely live in their own house.
Yeah.
They don't
Mhm.
have anybody fighting for them. And so you've got, your kids have a step up in the world right
Yeah.
now. That they have these kinds of advocates who are hitting the ground with them and staying in it until they're sober.
Can I tell a quick story? It's about 2004, the year that my older daughter was graduating from high school. And I was in this room, and there were lots of kids in the room, and I think 5 parents. Also, a parent who was the class advisor was in the room, and this parent said, "We know what to do so that nobody gets killed or hurt or arrested. And we're gonna have this great big party at my house, we're getting a tent. And, you know, the kids are gonna leave their keys with us, and they can do whatever they want in this party. They can drink, we'll have someone safe so they can buy from them right here in this room." And it was a wake-up call because both my daughters who were attending the high school were telling me these things were going on, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it till I sat here in the room and heard this parent, and I was the only parent, maybe because I was so outraged, and one of my daughters happened to be there, and I felt I wanted to protect her, or I wanted to show her you can say no, because she was like, "Mom, don't you say anything." And I stood up and I couldn't help myself because I've lived with people with addiction all my life. And I thought, wow, this is such a wake-up call for me. And other parents were afraid to stand up. There were only a few of us there. So I went home and I called the police and I said, is this legal? And I got someone who knew me and was very evasive. I didn't get a straight answer. So I called Martha's Vineyard Police Department and they said, "No way. Are you gonna let your kid go to this?" And I said, "It's not my choice, but I'm going to tell her how I feel." And she already knows. She was with me in meeting. My daughter chose not to go. But the party didn't happen because the word got around, and maybe there was a party, but it wasn't involving all the students in this class. And that was shocking. I don't know where I was all that time. My brain was asleep. And I grew up in a housing project. All my friends grew up, not all of them, but a lot of them, to be addicts. They were addicts. There were kids who were 9 and 10 years old when I was a kid. So here, I don't know where I was. And finally, that wake-up call came in 2004 in this room. So, I don't know if things have changed in the school, but I've been told that they have. But adults, you can treat the kids all you want. Adults are a part of this too. And shame is a big problem. And I don't know, maybe I missed the other talks and I'm really sad that I did. And when I see it on Facebook, I share it with everyone. And I have a daughter who lives here and I invite her to come. Will you please come with me? And she's still ashamed of what happened that year in high school. She was ashamed when we went home. She was on a trip with a singing group in high school, and when they came back from this trip to Europe, where they were so lucky to be able to sing in all these wonderful cities, I got a phone call from a teacher who was angry with me because I had said something to the newspaper. And I didn't know what that teacher was talking about. This is the same period of time. And I was very confused. And my daughter came home and said, I can't believe you did that. You told the newspaper about everybody drinking? Well, there were kids who were drunk, who had alcohol poisoning, who went to the hospital. This happened right here in our high school. And we were shamed. For years, people didn't talk to me because they said, you almost ruined that program. But I have a program that supports me, and I understand that it wasn't my fault. And I go to that program faithfully because I need that support in this community. But there aren't many of us coming and going to these programs that give us support. I'm not a drug addict and I'm not an alcoholic, and I'm very grateful that somehow the disease didn't get into me, but there are a lot of adults in this community who will never speak up and never say anything, and there are a lot of kids who are exposed to all this stuff here at school and at home, and they don't have someone to stand up for them. And because of safety issues about a child being with an adult who's not their parents, there's not a whole lot you can do. What can you say to someone? What can you do for them?
Well, 11 years later, I can tell you there's still stories going on just like that. Not necessarily the one in this room, but there are parents that will supply and thinks it's okay to supply alcohol to their children because that's what they did when they were children. Their parents supplied alcohol. Our chief has a zero tolerance policy for minors in possession of alcohol. I can tell you that the last house party I was in charge of, there was 45 parents I called, and I required each parent to come out there. And I got kickback from 4 parents that refused to come out and pick up their own children. So you're absolutely right when, yes, we have to be concerned of the kids, but we also have to educate the parents. And I think Dr. Bucky, who is the principal, implemented that program during prom time, that it is required in order to graduate that the parent has to go to a seminar that is instructed by an attorney to educate them on possession of alcohol and allowing them to do that. But so things have changed as far as in the school system goes, and things have changed with the police department and having a zero tolerance policy, but I can tell you that's still not going to stop 100%. It requires a strong core family. It requires the guardians and parents sit down and talk to their children. It requires communication. It requires a community, which is what we're trying to do up here and what Behavioral Health Task Force and what all the other organizations in this community are trying to do.
And I know we're coming to a close here for our shortness of time, but I think that this is the real motivation behind why we keep doing these once a month community talks or community lectures to spread information, is that it does start with adults and it does start with families and conversation and trying to lower the stigma of this is happening and their choices of how to handle it. And while providers on this side of the table, as well as those in the community that are just by our sides working as hard with us, is that there's a lot of collaboration to try to lean on one another to offer more. It's not perfect, but we're working together to manage it. I think the conversation's really important to keep going and bringing it back out and getting more people in rooms like this. It was on the radio. It was on all of our Facebook pages. It was sent out all to the task force. It's been sent out to all the school members. It's never a good time. I know it's summer, but people need to hear this. So I think what we could leave with is everything that you got out of this, or the concerns and your frustration. Who else can we tell who could be really motivated to make change on this? Who in the court system needs to hear it? Who in the school system needs to hear it? What other families need to show up and be part of this? That can be how change happens.
Can we ask one more question?
Of course.
Just one. Tim, what age group is the school gonna start, like, addressing? Are they looking hard addressing the middle school kids on these?
Well, I mean, it's part of the health curriculum. It's part of the health curriculum all the way through. I mean, but,
I'm just asking, are they looking, because we now know that that's the age group to hit.
but there
Yes.
is, it's in the health curriculum.
I believe ASAP is also
Yeah.
looking
Yep.
to begin new programs. They want to do the survey that they do in the high school, in the middle school. I co-sponsor, along with community school as well as ASAP, a youth prevention program where we talk about a wide range of topics. So we talk about internet safety, we talk about drugs and alcohol use. But Tim's right, it is in the curriculum, and I am.
The one that ASAP looked at, it put in the story that was written by the mom, is it in the school, do you know yet?
Written by the mom.
The mom wrote a story in regards to, I think, her son that passed away, and it became.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard of it.
Look, ASAP is looking at putting it into the school system.
Is it obituary by chance that was written where they were very frank about?
No, it's a story written about is it Teddy? And it's written about a young boy, and they were looking at implementing it into the middle school. I know it was a part of ASAP. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, but I can't think of the program.
And did they ever get, were they
They're
able
getting
to?
books coming in,
The books are, so
Oh,
will it
the
be
books,
next year
yeah.
then we'll be going in?
yes.
Okay.
But
So-
I personally feel that's useful, but I would go back, and I'll look at it from my perspective as a school committee member. If I were gonna have a maximum impact on cutting down the risky behavior that appears late middle school, high school, and this may sound crazy, I would go back to make sure that the kids in elementary school are successful. Because if the kids are successful, if the kid can read, if the kid is at grade level, if the kid's doing well, they are less, I believe they are less apt to participate in the risky behavior that leads to this drug use. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I've got a great longitudinal study that shows this, but I think the kids, it seems to me that the kids that are not progressing, the kids that have trouble reading for whatever reason, are moving ahead, become.
Then how do you fix that? I mean, that's a whole question.
How do you
Yeah.
fix that?
You were on
Okay.
the school committee, that's all.
How do I fix that? I think, and I've been a pain in the ass, and I think it started from Alan Myers to really try to put more money into the elementary grades. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, and I think that's where we have to have that big impetus, because adolescents are mindless toads, okay? Particularly adolescent boys, okay? They are screw ups.
Adolescents.
Yeah, and I think what you got to do is have these
You'll learn
kids,
the paper.
be successful. If the kid is successful, they're gonna find alternative ways to burn off that energy. And I think if a kid is getting into the middle school, is lagging behind, isn't reading at grade level, all of those things, that engenders behaviors that are not good, and it gets the kids into issues.
That was my son.
Yeah.
But that's in some of the cases, that's not all.
No, but I think, okay,
So it's
We should
interesting.
probably, I know,
I just wanted
with
to
the
mention one
interest
other
of time,
quick point though, too,
closing
just as a
comments,
positive
yes.
thing that, I think we mentioned it last time too, and it's not in the schools, but bear in mind, we're also gonna be instituting a new position for all the primary care. We talk about catching things early, be it kids or catching things early for an adult.
Yeah.
And that everybody goes to their physician, almost everybody. And if we're gonna have screening tools in there to be able to pick up on early mental illness issues, substance abuse issues, things like that. So with a simple screening tool before it's become an issue, then Dr. Lepre or Dr. Kame or whoever would have an opportunity to call in a professional to address it with that patient at that time.
What is that?
But we don't have enough professionals
No, but this is a brand new position to catch, the point is it's catching it at its earliest onset, before, whether it be through pot or any of the other, contributing type of, you catch it earlier, you might prevent it from becoming something I gotta deal with in the emergency room later on. So that's, when you're looking at some positives,
It's a psychiatric nurse.
it's it's gonna be a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Psychiatric nurse practitioner embedded in the primary care office.
That's gonna be available.
One in each primary care office?
One.
No.
One
One.
for everybody.
Starting one, it's a pilot program.
Yeah.
So one for all the.
Yeah.
That's
But-
gonna be a tough job.
Yeah, it is, but it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a very exciting one.
It's
And
exciting to
in terms
have
of
new
doing something
service.
new.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And they're
Good.
doing it on the Cape. This is a model
Yeah.
that's being reproduced across the United
It's
States.
been successful.
They're really moving
Yeah.
towards that parity, that integration
Yep.
of services.
One quick question for
Okay.
Tess, and I don't mean this
It's
to be
okay.
disrespectful at all, but the Nantucket Family Resource Center,
Yes.
that's not just a new name for the Nantucket Counseling Center.
It's a new program.
This is something brand new,
Absolutely.
bigger, better, more services.
In addition to.
So
addition to-
in the AA space that is just to the side, they will continue to have their 7 a.m. meeting and their 5:30 meeting. We will have 40 hours during a week in between those times that will be what those cards are, which are free services. They're not going to be clinical in nature. There's only going to be a small subset of that. It's going to be more of case management, of helping people navigate resources, how to catch people through the court system. It is not replacing or taking away from anything the counseling agency is doing. So the counseling agency is 26 in staff. A lot of it's community-based, a lot of it's crisis services, medication management, psych testing, outpatient groups. This is in addition to. In addition to. We're very excited about it. It's a grant that I worked with Family Continuity to write. It's funded by the state. We hope to have it for 5 years, if not longer. One of 18 throughout the state.
Families can come in, like
Yep.
if a parent is going through that place where they're having a hard time with their child using substances, they can all go in together
Yep.
and get help. We'll have dinners there, it's not just, drop in and look at resources. There's gonna be all kinds of stuff happening there. There'll be stuff for small children, so it's really family oriented, with components for case management, with components for connection to other, systems on Nantucket, the school system, and helping parents and kids navigate that, the court system, helping parents and kids navigate that, and giving that, advocacy around it.
I worked really quickly last fall, recognizing that if Governor Baker does this $1.8 billion cut of all crisis services, that there wouldn't be any on island, and us having a wait list that was largely due to insurance and lack of providers. What if we moved it towards free services, family services, drop-in groups, no problems with trying to really get in the door? That maybe that's one piece of the puzzle.
Great. Can we ask next time that maybe, when you do this panel, can you get the probation officer to come in?
Sure.
'Cause I think
I
it'd
actually
be
took a note,
interesting-
so I'm gonna have a
Yes.
It'd be
conversation with her.
interesting to know when kids are getting in on probation, or part of their probation is that they seek counseling and there
Yeah.
isn't counseling available. How do we attend all that? So I think maybe if they came in, it might help add to the legal aspect of the
Sure.
conversations.
Absolutely.
Sure.
about good
One thing I
communication.
just wanted to tell you
It's
is
all about good
Yeah,
communication.
it really is.
the next thing that would be of interest would be on Tuesday, June 16th. Access Nantucket has bringing some presenters out about overdose training, Narcan training, and obviously a lot of the Nantucket Cottage Hospital, ASAP, Health Imperatives Family and Children's Services is co-sponsoring this event. This is a community-free event. I have one of these, so you can take a picture on your cell phone. We're going to post it on the
They
on
actually gave it to
Facebook.
us, yeah.
Oh, good, you all have it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. So that's the next one, but we'll have one for next month too, in Athland.
Just a thought.
Yep.
Since we're talking about trying to reach, because not everybody can be here.
Yep.
Have we ever thought about having it televised so it could run and
It's meant to be televised right now.
it's meant to be? Oh, it's happening?
I don't know how that worked out. I think we were missing one wire.
We're
Is it?
trying to do it.
Oh, we're
These are
good.
good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay. So this is being filmed.
Now?
I didn't know if it was happening.
Well,
You guys are it's just voices, and I didn't think he had the thumbs up that it was working, but yes.
But now we'll reach other.
But we're trying to get it. So thank you for Dr. Hartman for showing up and all of the families. So we'll keep at this. Thanks, Leffrey.
Okay?
Thanks, Anna. Thank you, everyone.